So you want to make a bigger impact with your user research.
Definitely.
Tired of seeing those reports just kind of gather dust.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
It's a common pain point.
This time we're diving into this SEA framework by Nikki.
This is a good one.
Seems like just the ticket to help researchers, like, you become strategic leaders and actually, make a difference.
Bridge that gap between insight and impact.
Okay, let's unpack this SEA thing.
It's a good framework.
It's strategy, execution, activation.
Exactly. And it all starts with strategy even before you think about research design. I'm
Okay.
talking about connecting your work to those big picture business goals.
So you're saying it's not enough to just gather user feedback. You need to tie it directly to business outcomes.
Precisely imagine you're working with a company that's struggling with user retention.
Okay.
Asking, what do users think,
Yeah.
isn't enough.
Right.
You need to ask, how can my research help improve retention by, say, 15%?
Ooh, I like that.
Nikki actually calls out specific metrics in her SEA template as a way to measure the research's success.
That's a really important point. I'm remembering this one project where we were trying to improve a core product feature, and we gathered tons of feedback, but because we hadn't tied it to a concrete adoption goal, it was tough to get stakeholders on board with the recommendations.
Oh yeah, that's a classic example
Yeah.
where the CA framework could have made a world of difference.
Totally.
It forces you to think strategically from the outset.
So how crucial is it to involve stakeholders in that initial strategy phase?
It's not just crucial, it's essential.
Okay.
You need to understand their pain points, the things that keep them up at night. What are their goals? What does success look like to them? Once you understand that, you can align your research questions to directly address those needs.
So it's about speaking their language, connecting the research to the things they care about most, like revenue growth cost savings, or in the case of our retention example, reducing churn.
Exactly. Now, once you have a rock-solid strategy, you move on to the execution phase.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Because even the best strategy is useless if you don't execute it properly.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's about choosing the right tools for the job.
Right.
Nikki stresses that we can't just default to our favorite research methods.
Okay.
If we're trying to understand the why behind user behavior, diving into a round of in-depth user interviews might be the best approach.
Yeah.
But if we need to quickly test the effectiveness of different design elements on a web page,
Okay.
A/B testing would be a more efficient and insightful method.
So it's about adapting your approach based on the specific questions you're trying to answer and the type of data that will be most impactful.
Yes.
Reminds me of this one time I was working on a project, and we were so convinced that we needed to do these elaborate user interviews. Looking back, we could have answered our core questions with a well-crafted survey and some usability testing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were so focused on using a specific method that we kind of lost sight of what we were actually trying to achieve.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a particular method,
Totally.
but the SEA framework kind of keeps you grounded in that strategic mindset.
Okay.
And documentation is key here, too.
Okay.
Nikki talks about creating a centralized repository for all research findings.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of like a user research library where anyone in the company can go to access insights.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. I have definitely experienced the pain of siloed research where valuable information just gets lost in email chains or buried in someone's personal drive.
Right.
Having a central repository not only makes information accessible, but it also reinforces the value of the research itself.
Exactly.
It's right there.
It transforms research from a one-off project into a valuable company asset.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say we've nailed the strategy. We've executed our research flawlessly. We've got this amazing library of insights. Now, how do we ensure those insights actually spark change?
That's the million-dollar question. That's where I think a lot of us stumble. We think that just presenting a report is enough.
Right.
You know?
And I say, no, a beautifully designed report does have its place.
Right.
But it's what you do with that report, how you bring those insights to life that really matters.
Oh.
That's where activation, the third pillar of the SEA framework, comes into play.
And this is where I think Nikki's background in marketing really shines through.
Absolutely. She gets that it's not enough to just present the facts.
Right.
You need to weave them into a compelling narrative.
So it's about making those insights impossible to ignore, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nikki talks about framing your findings in a way that resonates with stakeholders.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, we need to improve the onboarding flow,
Yeah.
you could say, Our research shows that 20% of users abandon the onboarding process due to its complexity.
Right.
By simplifying this process, we can increase user activation by X%, which translates to an estimated Y% boost in revenue.
Now you're talking.
Right? That's how you get stakeholders' attention. You're not just presenting a problem. You're offering a solution and you're backing it up with hard data.
Precisely. And that's where strong visuals come in.
Okay.
Charts, graphs, infographics, anything that can help bring those data points to life and make the impact crystal clear.
Because nobody's really excited about a wall of text and bullet points.
Exactly. A compelling narrative paired with powerful visuals. That's how you transform data into action.
Love it.
But Nikki also emphasizes that activation doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It's about follow-through and accountability.
Oh, interesting. So you're not just handing off a report and washing your hands of it.
Yeah.
You're staying involved, making sure those recommendations are actually implemented.
Absolutely. Schedule those check-in meetings, hold stakeholders accountable for making progress.
Right.
Remember, you're not just a researcher. You're an advocate for the user and an agent for change within your organization. I like that a lot. This has been eye-opening. So to recap, if you want to go from data collector to strategic leader, the SEA framework is your roadmap. Define a clear strategy aligned with business goals, execute your research meticulously, and activate those insights to drive real impact.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And remember, it's a continuous journey of learning and improvement.
This SEA framework is definitely giving me a lot to think about as I gear up for my next big research project.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you mentioned that Nikki's writing a book about all of this.
Yes, it's due out in late 2025, and it's going to be packed with even more insights and practical advice on how to turn user research into a driving force for impact.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include a link to her waitlist in the show notes so you can stay in the loop. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive, and I think it speaks to something we talk about a lot on this show, the power of bridging the gap between knowledge and action.
It's not enough to just know the theory.
Right.
We need to be able to apply it in the real world to make a tangible difference.
And that's exactly what this SEA framework empowers us to do. So for all you listeners out there ready to ditch the data collector label and step into your roles as strategic leaders, take Nikki's advice to heart. Find your why, connect with your stakeholders, and never underestimate the power of a good story.
Well said.
This reminds me of a quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Okay.
A goal without a plan is just a wish.
I like it.
The SE framework gives us that plan. It helps us transform our research aspirations into concrete achievements.
I love that.
And with that thought-provoking quote, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. A huge thank you to Nikki for sharing her expertise and for giving us the tools to become more strategic and impactful researchers. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.